The swirly pop forest hummed with a low, sugary vibration. Madeline moved ahead, her boots crunching against ground made of crushed peppermint. Behind her, Maisie checked the parchment, her fingers tracing the jagged lines of the path. The trees here were twisted stalks of hard candy, leaning low over the trail like frozen sentinels. Every breath tasted of spun sugar and cooling mint. They reached a fork where the path split into two distinct, glowing trails. Madeline slowed, her gaze tracking the movement of the canopy above. She turned to speak, but the ground beneath her feet gave a violent, wet heave. A dozen thick, translucent shapes erupted from the soil. Gummy worms. They moved with a sickening, liquid speed, lashing out to coil tightly around Madeline's ankles. She lurched forward, her weight shifting, and hit the ground hard. The worms tightened their grip, pulling her deeper into the soft, yielding earth. She kicked out, but the sticky surface held her fast. Maisie lunged forward, but the worms hissed, their bodies weaving into a dense, impassable knot. Madeline gripped the edge of a candy root as the worms began to drag her backward. Maisie raised her staff. The tip flared with a blinding golden light. She slammed the base against the ground. With a sharp crack, a bridge of solid rock candy surged upward, arching over the wriggling mass of worms. Madeline scrambled onto the hard, crystalline surface, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She pulled herself across, leaving the worms behind. They did not stop to look back. The trail led them directly to the base of the Chocolate Mountains. The terrain changed instantly. The ground was no longer firm candy, but a deep, treacherous layer of fine, dark cocoa powder. It acted like quicksand. Every step required a deliberate, exhausting pull to free their boots. They leaned into the slope, their muscles straining against the resistance. The air grew dense and warm, thick with the sharp scent of burnt sugar. They pushed upward, one heavy step after another. The mountains seemed to swallow their energy. They reached a plateau, gasping for air. The summit loomed ahead. They crested the final ridge, their lungs burning from the thin, sugar-laden air. The summit was a flat, desolate expanse of hardened fudge. Before they could take another step, a low, rhythmic vibration cut through the silence. A figure descended from the swirling mist, hovering inches above the ground. Her wings beat with a frantic, metallic hum that made the air shimmer. She stopped directly in their path, her body rigid and unmoving. She raised a thin, sharp wand, pointing it directly at Madeline's chest. The tip glowed with a cold, piercing light. She did not speak at first, only circled them, her gaze sharp and calculating. Every movement she made was precise, predatory, and entirely devoid of warmth. She stopped again, blocking the only exit from the plateau. Her expression was a mask of icy stillness. When she finally spoke, her voice sounded like grinding stones. "Solve this, or turn back," she hissed, the words hanging heavy in the air. "What has an eye but cannot see?" The silence that followed was absolute. The fairy held her position, the wand steady, waiting for a mistake. Madeline felt the weight of the question settle into her bones. Madeline did not hesitate. She looked the fairy in the eyes and shouted, "A needle!" The effect was immediate. The fairy recoiled, her wings fluttering in a jagged, uneven rhythm. The annoyance on her face dissolved into genuine shock. She lowered her wand, the cold light fading into nothingness. With a sharp, dismissive flick of her wrist, she drifted aside, clearing the path. Behind her, the cliff edge dropped away into a churning abyss. The roar of Gummy Bear Falls rose up from the depths. Madeline grabbed Maisie's hand, pulling her toward the precipice. They did not look back. They threw themselves onto the slick, dark surface. Gravity took hold instantly. They plummeted, the wind whipping past their ears as the track twisted and turned with violent speed. The slide was narrow and impossibly smooth, forcing them to press their bodies flat. Below, the falls grew larger, a massive cascade. They hit a steep vertical drop, their stomachs rising into their throats as they accelerated into the dark, chewy tunnel. They were locked in a wild descent. They hit the marshmallow lake with a soft, muffled thud that absorbed all their momentum. The white, pillowy surface yielded beneath them, cushioning the landing. Madeline and Maisie waded through the thick, airy fluff, their laughter echoing against the canyon walls as they shook the remnants from their hair. The air felt cool and still. Above, the orange candy drop sun began to sink behind the horizon, casting long, golden shadows across the lake. They climbed onto a firm patch of ground, breathing deeply. Maisie unfolded the map, her fingers tracing a new, glowing path marked on the far side of the lake. The light from the path pulsed steadily, a beacon in the fading day. They stood together, watching the horizon, ready to move forward.